Fear of missing out has a very specific mechanism behind it. Psychology can now trace almost exactly how it operates in the brain. Long before smartphones existed, Stoic philosophy identified the same underlying pattern. It simply used completely different language. Understanding both versions together explains why this feeling is so hard to shake. It also explains what actually works against it. Researchers define fear of missing out in a specific way. It is a pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which you are absent. Notice the key word buried in that definition. It is apprehension about someone else's experience. It is not actually about your own. This distinction matters enormously. The feeling is built almost entirely on comparison, not on any actual deficit in your own life. Studies using social media as a research tool found something consistent repeatedly. People scrolling through curated highlights of other people's lives show measurable spikes in distress. That distress is driven less by what they lack and more by the act of comparing itself. Remove the comparison, and something interesting happens. The underlying situation often remains completely unchanged. Only the suffering attached to that situation decreases. Epictetus addressed comparison directly. He did this centuries before social media existed in any form. He taught that if you want to improve, you must accept appearing foolish sometimes in matters outside your control. He insisted on not measuring your life against other people's circumstances at all. He was describing exactly what modern researchers now call social comparison theory. This is the tendency to evaluate your own worth by measuring it against others, rather than against your own values. Neuroscience adds a specific detail here too. Social comparison activates reward processing circuitry. This is the same general system involved in other compulsive behaviors. Checking what others are doing delivers small, unpredictable bursts of information. This is structurally similar to the unpredictable rewards that make slot machines so hard to walk away from. This is not just a metaphor. The underlying mechanism is called variable reward scheduling. It is genuinely comparable in structure between the two. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that reads almost like a direct antidote to this exact mechanism, deliberately. He reminded himself to confine his attention to the present task in front of him. He treated each moment as complete in itself, not as a fragment of some larger experience elsewhere. This sounds simple, but it directly interrupts the comparison loop. Comparison requires imagining an alternate present you are not currently living in. Psychology research on mindfulness supports this same approach from a different angle entirely. People trained to fully attend to their current activity report something specific. Without mentally scanning for better alternatives, they show significantly lower fear of missing out over time. The mechanism behind this is fairly straightforward. Fear of missing out requires split attention. Part of you stays here, and part of you imagines somewhere else. Full attention on the present task structurally removes the space where that split can even occur. Seneca offered a related warning about a very specific trap, one still relevant today. He said that a person who runs from place to place, seeking novelty and distraction, will never actually rest. The problem was never the location, it was the restless mind carried along everywhere they went. Applied to modern fear of missing out, this idea becomes strikingly direct. Attending yet another event will not resolve that underlying restlessness at all. The restlessness simply relocates wherever you go next. There is a specific exercise both traditions converge on when examined closely. First, notice the exact moment fear of missing out appears. It is usually triggered by seeing evidence of someone else's experience. Second, name what you are actually comparing. The comparison is rarely fair, since it usually pits your ordinary daily reality against someone else's curated highlight. Third, return full attention to whatever you are currently doing. Treat it as genuinely complete, not as a lesser substitute for something happening elsewhere. Fourth, ask whether the anxious urge is about genuine desire or simply about not wanting to be left out. These two things require completely different responses. None of this argues against genuine connection. It does not argue against occasionally saying yes to real opportunities either. Stoic philosophy was never antisocial. It was never opposed to enjoying life's actual pleasures either. It argued specifically against one version of participation, the compulsive, comparison-driven kind. That version is chosen from anxiety rather than genuine desire. A person can attend fewer things and feel more present at each one. Research increasingly suggests this produces more satisfaction than attending everything while mentally scanning for the next thing the entire time. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He still chose, repeatedly, to narrow his attention to exactly what was in front of him, rather than everything he might theoretically be missing elsewhere. Modern psychology now has instruments sophisticated enough to measure why that narrowing actually works precisely. The instruments themselves are new. The underlying discipline is not new at all. Choosing presence over constant comparison is exactly as old as philosophy itself. Consider what happens during an ordinary evening at home while scrolling through a phone. A photo appears showing friends gathered somewhere else, laughing, clearly having a good time. The immediate reaction rarely involves rational evaluation. It rarely asks whether attending would have actually been enjoyable. It involves a quick, automatic pang instead. That pang feels like something important happening without you. That pang arrives before any conscious thought does, which is exactly why willpower alone rarely resolves it. Researchers studying this exact reaction found something useful. The pang fades remarkably quickly once attention returns fully to the present activity, whatever it happens to be. The problem was never really the photo itself at all. The problem was the several minutes spent afterward. Those minutes go toward mentally simulating an alternate evening instead of actually living the one currently in progress. Fear of missing out, examined this way, is less about missing an event. It is more about repeatedly abandoning the moment you are actually in. Epictetus offered a memorable phrase for this exact abandonment. He said that people are not disturbed by things, but by their opinions about things. Few opinions cause more disturbance than the quiet belief that somewhere else, right now, life is happening more fully than it is happening here. That belief is almost never actually checked against reality. It simply gets accepted automatically the moment a comparison appears. This continues unless someone has deliberately trained themselves to notice and question it first. The training itself does not need to be complicated at all. Simply noticing the pang works. Name it silently as comparison rather than as fact. Return attention to whatever task is actually in front of you. Repeated often enough, this gradually weakens the automatic pull. Neither Stoic philosophy nor modern psychology promises this feeling disappears completely, ever. Both simply promise it stops running the show. This happens once the noticing itself becomes the new automatic response instead. That shift, small as it sounds, changes something significant about how an ordinary day actually feels. A life lived through constant comparison always feels slightly behind, slightly incomplete, regardless of how full it objectively is. A life lived through repeated, deliberate presence tends to feel sufficient far more often, not because less is happening, but because whatever is happening finally gets a person's full attention while it happens, instead of being quietly abandoned in favor of somewhere else.